Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pastacha Deshatarne. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So we are continuing with our mini-series on stimulation for ecstatic love, and this will be part 10. For this lecture, we will focus on flowers. What role flowers play in Krishna's pastimes and how they can act as a stimulus for awakening love for the divine couple, Shri Radhasham Sundar. There's a very nice verse in the Shastra, Shubha Shita Ratna Bhandagaram, about the potency of both flowers and saints. It's as follows: Asajana sajjana sangi sanghat karoti dusha dhyam apiha sadhyam pushpas rachchakcham bhushiro durudha pipi lika chambuti chandra bimbam. Very beautiful Sanskrit. Quote, by taking shelter of great souls, even a lowly person can achieve the impossible. Just as an ant in the shelter of a flower that has been offered on the head of Lord Shiva can actually perform the feat of touching the crescent moon. It's so beautiful. There are also two of my favorite statements by Srila Prabhupada about flowers. In a Srimad Bhagavatam lecture in Bombay on January 19th, 1975, he said, flowers are the smile of Krishna. Flowers are the smile of Krishna. It's not a long statement, but it doesn't need to be. It's like a sutra. And there's that saying in Chaitanya Charitamrita, quoting Kaviraj Goswami, elegance is truth spoken concisely. Also, once when describing to some disciple pujaris how to do deity worship, Prabhupada commented that, quote, flowers are the jewels of Kali Yuga. Flowers are the jewels of Kali Yuga. Now there's also a famous photo of Srila Prabhupada that appeared on an early BBT publication of Krishna book, on the back of one of the two, it was divided into two parts, two books. This was in the old days, I think in the 70s or 80s, we used to distribute these big Krishna books. And it showed Prabhupada holding a golden colored champak flower. And as the photographer took the photo, Srila Prabhupada said that Lord Chaitanya's transcendental body was the same color as that flower, golden. This is surely, I could just say, seeing with the eyes of devotion. Now, even our beloved Krishna himself affectionately refers to flowers in his immortal Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 26, where he says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. And such, how could you say, offered flowers take on great importance for devotees as a means of stimulation for ecstatic love. How so? Well, Srila Prabhupada writes in Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, chapter 12. It's a little long, but it's very significant here. As far as Maharaj Ambarish is concerned, he actually performed all the items of devotional service. He first of all engaged his mind upon the lotus feet of Krishna. He engaged his words and his power of speaking in describing the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He engaged his hands in washing the temple of the deity, his ears in hearing the words of Krishna, and his eyes in beholding the deity. He engaged his sense of touch by rendering service to the devotees, and he engaged his sense of smell by relishing the fragrance of flowers offered to Krishna. By relishing the fragrance of flowers offered to Krishna. He engaged his tongue in tasting the tulsi leaves offered to the lotus feet of Krishna. his legs in going to the temple of Krishna, and his head in offering obeisances to the deity of Krishna. And I found a similar instruction is given in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, verse 122. Parikrama stavapata japa sankirtana dupa malya ganda mahaprasada bhojana. Bengali. It states, one should circumambulate a temple, recite various prayers, chant softly, chant congregationally, smell the incense and flower garlands offered to the deity, and eat the remnants of food offered to the deity. And just wearing garlands of flowers that have been offered to Krishna is actually one of the 64 limbs of devotional service, described by Sri Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, where he actually quotes Srimad Bhagavatam 11:646, where Sri Uddhava is described there. Sri Uddhava says, Tvayo prabhukta saggandha vaso lankara charchita uchtishta bhojino dhashash tavamayam jayemahi. Very beautiful. Quote, simply by decorating ourselves with the garlands, fragrant oils, clothes, and ornaments that you have already enjoyed, Krishna, and by eating the remnants of your meals, we, your servants, will indeed conquer your illusory energy. Now, Sri Rupa Goswami also quotes another verse from Skanda Purana in support of wearing flower garlands offered to the Lord. He writes, Krishnotrinam nu niramhalya yashtangam sprishate mune sarva rogash tata parpar mukto bhavati narada. Quote, O Narada, whenever the nirmalya, remnants like garlands, etc., taken from Krishna's deity, touch the body of an individual, they become free from all diseases and sins. They become free from all diseases and sins. Just see how powerful the purifying are the flower garlands offered to the Lord. That's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 126. So in these ways, and so many more, we can understand the importance of something so simple as flowers that help to awaken our love for Radhesham. And the glory of Sri Vrindavan Dham, where I'm very fortunate to be sitting here now in Vrindavan. The glory of Vrindavan is that there are unlimited kinds of flowers to offer to Krishna and to be used in his service. For example, a sample of different flowers that are here in Vrindavan. There's Malika flowers, there's Lavanga flowers, there are Jati flowers, Utika flowers, Kadamba flowers, Champak flowers, Stala Aravinda flowers. Yes, Stala Aravinda flowers. Shirisha flowers, Kunda flowers, Ketaki. There's Ketaki flowers. There's Kushambha flowers and Kimshuka flowers. This I was reading. I haven't seen all of them or appreciated their aroma once offered to Krishna, but that is a list the acharyas give. But for today, I thought we would just focus on one of those flowers. I mean, it seems we can give lots of classes on flowers. We'll just focus on the famous Kadamba flower, Kadamba. Now, I did some research. According to the book Rajani Ganthu, it's an ancient Ayurvedic encyclopedia. It was written by a very famous Kashmiri royal physician, hundreds of years ago. He describes therein that there are 27 trees on the planet Earth which are known as Deva Vriksha trees, meaning, literally, trees on which demigods eternally reside. Just put that in your mind's eye. These 27 trees This is where demigods reside, on the earth planet. And one of these 27 trees is the Kadamba tree, which produces Kadamba flowers. Now the specialty of Sri Vrindavan Dham is that all these 27 types of trees used to be found in Braj in the olden days. They're scattered around the world, but all 27 of these trees used to be found in Braj in the olden days. Therefore, it's described when Krishna came to Braj 5,000 years ago, it was already a reservoir of all auspiciousness. It's as if the demigods were just waiting for Krishna to come to receive him and participate in his Braj Leela. Now there's a famous story that's been passed down from one generation to another here in Vrindavan. It's a nice little story. And that is that several centuries ago, when the Mughals unfortunately attacked Vrindavan, as you know, most of the deities were moved to other states in India, in particular Rajasthan. Now after this happened, after all the deities had been moved, the story goes that a little boy asked his grandfather, "O elderly father, please tell me, whom shall we worship now? Whom shall we worship now?" So the grandfather, he smiled at the boy and said, "Son, Krishna eternally resides in the Tamal tree, and Sri Radha in the Kadamba tree. Therefore, don't worry, we will simply worship these transcendental trees." Wow. Therefore, don't worry, we shall simply worship these transcendental trees. And in Vrindavan to this very day, the Tamal and Kadamba trees are still worshipped. I can verify that, having traveled all over Brajbhumi. Now, in many places in Shastra, we find that whenever Krishna feels separation from Sri Radha, he embraces a Kadamba tree. And whenever Sri Radha feels separation from Krishna, she embraces a Tamal tree. Because the Tamal tree has a dark complexion, like Krishna, and a Kadamba tree has a golden complexion, like Sri Radhika. Very beautiful. Now, before diving into the nectarian ocean of, how can I say, Kadamba pastimes, let's hear a little bit more about Kadamba trees so that we can appreciate and relish these pastimes even more. These lectures are meant to be relished, unlike worldly news or worldly activities. In chapter 27 of the Charaka Samhita, which is what? An ancient scripture describing surgical operations in Vedic times. Wow. They had surgical operations in Vedic times. Charaka Samhita. Therein we learn that the Kadamba tree's stems, flowers, and leaves increase one's life, increase one's knowledge, fertility, and they increase the effulgence of one's face. Here in Vrindavan, I see that, sabjis and pickles are still made from Kadamba leaves and flowers. And I was reading there's actually 2 different types of Kadamba trees. One Kadamba tree blossoms with very small flowers, and it's quite short. And the other grows in Bengal and blossoms with very big flowers. These Bengali trees are much taller. Now in Brajbasa language it's commonly said, Kadamba Shri Radha. Kadamba Shri Radha, which means Radha's complexion is like a Kadamba flower. And in Bengali it's said Kadamba Jini Gaur, meaning that Gauranga's complexion is like that of Kadamba flowers. Now again in Rajani Gandhu, that Ayurvedic encyclopedia we mentioned, in verse 997, how did I get it? Vrindavan Research Institute, a gold mine for ISKCON now. There it said that the Kadamba tree has 7 different names. Lots of details, but, love is in the details. So what are the different names of the Kadamba tree? Vrita Pushpa. Shurabi, Lala Napriya, Kadambharaya, Sindhu Pushpa, Madhadya, and Karna Puraka. Now the same book also lists 3 sub-varieties, here we go, of Kadamba trees. Dara Kadamba, Duli Kadamba, and Bhumi Kadamba. And all these varieties and sub-varieties still exist today in Vrindavan's forests. Even the Bengali Kadamba tree also grows in different parts of Braj. Now also in the Vrindavan Research Institute, we found a friend of the poet Surdas, who we often quote, the great Surdas, whose samadhi is there at Chandra Sarovara. A friend of his, whose name was Govinda Das, wrote famously, it's very famous here in Braj, Kadamba Chada Kanha Bhula Vat Gaya. It's Braj Bas. Meaning, young Shri Krishna climbs up a Kadamba tree and calls out to his cows. Hearing the enchanting sound of his flute, they come running from wherever they are. He also calls to all his friends who gather the cows together. The poet Govinda Das's Lord calls his brother Balaram, Krishna is calling his brother Balaram, and says, "Let's go home now, Balaram." He also sings very beautifully, Kadamba Mai Dikat Chahu Dishi, meaning, "Oh mother, look, everywhere are blossoming Kadamba trees. Thus garlands are made out of Kadamba flowers. Ankle bells and bracelets are made of Kadamba flowers. And the Kunja Bhavana grove is made from Kadamba leaves and stems." I love that, Kunja Bhavana grove. The poet Govinda Das says, "My dear mother, look at the opulence of the Kadamba trees existing in Vrindavan solely for the pleasure of Lord Krishna." Now, in Vrindavan, there's actually an entire forest of Kadamba trees, an entire forest. It's called Kadambavan. This forest is actually situated on the far side of Govardhan Hill, and it extends from the southern tip of Govardhan all the way up to Udavakund. My dear godbrother Govinda Maharaj, he once pointed out to me, just at that southern tip of Govardhan Hill, just around the corner, there used to be a big forest of Kadamba trees. He mentioned this to me many years ago. And now it makes sense. Of course, many have been cut down for agricultural purposes. I don't know why. It's so unfortunate. But he did say that when he first came to Vrindavan, there was a forest of Kadamba trees. And that's confirmed. That's Kadambavan. And it goes all the way up to Udavakund, which is close to Radhakund. Now, when our dear Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to Vrindavan, in search of Krishna, you could say, it's described that upon seeing the forest creatures in Kadambavan, because he did Govardhan Parikrama. So when he came to Kadambavan, they're circling around the southern point there, and he saw the forest creatures, he would faint in ecstasy. Because they're all Brajbasis, no part of Krishna's pastimes. So at that moment when he would faint, the deer would come forward and lick the foam from his mouth, while birds drank the tears that fell from his eyes. How fortunate. And upon regaining consciousness, it's described, he would continue to wander through Kadambavan on his parikrama. And at one point I was reading, he came upon a Kadamba tree whose flowers were in full bloom, and which reminded him, of course, of Sri Radha, same color. And as a result, he cried in ecstasy, causing the trees to flood the ground beneath them with their own tears. Wow, Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki. It's all about love. Witnessing all this, how's it said? The nearby deer fainted. And it's said that while searching for Krishna, either in a cave or in Govardhan Hill, or on Govardhan Hill, nearby Govardhan Hill, or in the forest, and not finding him, Lord Chaitanya would roar with grief. He would roar with grief. A roar that's described stopped peacocks from dancing and caused them to cry in fear. And because of these ecstatic ecstasies of separation felt by Mahaprabhu, in which his heart repeatedly broke and his body appeared to sustain injuries, his companions became fearful for him. So after Lord Chaitanya completed his Govardhan Parikrama, the Brajabasis, out of love for him, concern for him, they actually requested him to leave Braj and go back to Jagannath Puri from where he had come. His ecstasies were so great. As they were also in Gambhira temple in Puri. But, the Brajabasis became worried because as Mahaprabhu was going around Vrindavan, these ecstasies sometimes caused him to fall to the ground, etc. So they actually said, Mahaprabhu, please go back to Puri. This is nectar. Now, as far as the divine couple, Sri Sri Radhasham Sundar, are concerned, the ecstasies that they felt in Vrindavan's forest were no less than those experienced by Lord Chaitanya. Of course, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahayanga, Kaviraj confirms that the combined forms of Radha and Krishna appeared as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he felt ecstasy. So the ecstasies they felt 5,000 years ago in their pastimes in Vrindavan were no less than those experienced by Mahaprabhu. I found a quote by one Acharya, it's so nice. He writes that a single moment in the Kadambavan forest inspired within them, the divine couple, far greater happiness than the vast nectar ocean formed when all other spiritual ecstasies were pooled together. It's said that Kadambavan, being blessed by every wonderful fragrance, sweetness, and charm, attracts the heart of even the goddess of fortune. And in that transcendental forest, flowers blossom year-round. And Shastra says that, how's it said? Kadambavan forever echoes with the voices of birds, like male and female parrots, who recount the confidential pastimes of Radha and Krishna, as well as cuckoos, with their soft enchanting coo, coo. It's actually written coo-hoo, coo-hoo, K-U-H-U, the cuckoos, coo-hoo, coo. Now, for a lila, for a pastime, we've had some tattva there about, kadamba trees and kadamba flowers. One lila. One time in the Kadamba forest, Kadambavan, Krishna was late for a rendezvous with Srimati Radharani. And as time went on, Sri Radha became very anxious. And her anxiety, it's described, turned into distress. And in her distress, she became so emaciated that her gold and coral bracelets, I thought that was very beautiful, her gold and coral bracelets slid right off her wrists, and fell to the ground one by one. It's described like that, one by one. When you read these things, you repeat these things, you want to make sure that every detail is given. It just adds to the appreciation of Braja Leela. So her friends, gopis, the Braja gopis, I like to say Braja gopis, the cowherd girls, the milkmaids of Vrindavan, they tried to comfort her. But they knew that only the sight of Krishna could truly console her. So one intelligent gopi was sent to find Krishna and with the order to bring him back very quickly. However, when it became dark, she was unable to follow Krishna's footprints. So what? So she followed the compass of her heart. The needle of that compass was her love for Krishna, and its true north always pointed in whatever direction he was. So such poetry our acharyas give us. Finally, that gopi found Krishna. Where? In a grove of kadamba trees with blossoming flowers, kadamba flowers, where she saw many peacocks dancing, all alone with Krishna. So this milkmaid of Radha, she said to Krishna, "O Madhava, my dear but unhappy friend Radharani eagerly waits for you at Sharabikund. She risked everything to escape from her in-laws and braved the dangers of a dark, it's described, snake-infested forest, just to be with you. How could you insult her by loitering here in your father's kingdom? Unable to find you, she constantly embraces you within her heart. Thus she wanders about in agitation. One moment she gets up to leave, and the next moment she sits back down. She is so distracted that she does not care even to arrange her disheveled hair and clothes. Instead, she calls out in a piteous voice and showers the undergrowth with tears as she rolls on the ground. Sometimes Shri Radha runs back and forth. Sometimes she falls down unconscious. And at other times, she rips her sari in frustration, breaks her flower bracelets, and scatters the pearls of her necklace. At one moment, she talks to a tree, and the next moment she stumbles towards the Jamuna River. With her eyes filled with tears, she requested me as follows: "O friend, please find my Krishna, and when you do, tell him with words filled with devotion that I place all my love at his lotus feet." Tell him, you tell him, "Krishna, how could you possibly neglect someone who considers her own life insignificant when compared to fulfilling your every desire and reciprocating with your youthful love?" Hare Krishna. Isn't that wonderful? From the heart of Sri Radha. Vrindavaneshwari Shrimati Radharani ki. So the acharyas say that as nearby forest creatures heard these piteous cries and loving appeals, they were filled with the pain of separation and sympathy for Radharani's suffering. The forest animals. Of course, remember that everything in Vrindavan is personal, everything is a fully realized soul, everyone is a devotee of Krishna, a pure devotee of Krishna in a variety of ways. So when these enlightened forest animals heard these words, they were filled with what? I just love this. The pain of separation and sympathy. The pain of separation and sympathy for Radhika's suffering. And in that condition, the deer and birds wailed. The trees and creepers shriveled up. The bees stopped humming. The fish stopped swimming. The flowers wilted. Stones softened. And water solidified. So, realizing Radha's pangs of separation, as this gopi described to him, Krishna quickly stood up and followed that gopi to the rendezvous site for that day. And upon his arrival, Radharani's ecstasies immediately changed from separation to meeting, from vipralamba bhav to sambhog, from separation to meeting. As Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, he summarizes so nicely, such are the ever-fresh pastimes of Radha and Krishna within the groves of Kadambavan. And Srila Rupa Goswami gives a further hint of such pastimes in his Gandharva Sampartana Ashtakam. in an appeal to divine couple, he says in verse 5, speaking of himself, when will this person serve your lotus feet that adorn the three worlds by massaging them as you were sitting together on a cushion made of flowers in a grove while making sweet jokes with each other? Hare Krishna. Wow. So let us finish today with two prayers by one of our great heroes, Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati, who describes so nicely the pastime, so nicely the Leelas of Radha and Krishna and the Leelas of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in his Vrindavan Mahimamrita, he says very nicely, relevant to today's class. First of all, he says, I bow down before the great trees of Vrindavan, which are filled with leaves and sprouts, maddened bees, the tumult of many birds, nectar of streams of nectar honey, and branches bowed down with many splendid, wonderful fruits and flowers. I pray, number two, I pray to become a tree in Sri Vrindavan Dham and please Shishi Radhika Krishna with my limitless, splendid, sweet fruits, my unlimitedly splendid, fragrant flowers, filled with splendid pollen and splendid honey, my splendid host of birds as well, and my splendid twigs and buds. Oh, let me become a flowering tree in Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thank you so much, Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati. And a final, I hope, humble prayer by me. It's actually a traditional quote I've come across, used by Vaishnavas upon completing their lecture series, or their lectures. Yat atra skeletam kinchit vidvamsa pura yantu tat. Yad atra shoshtavam kinchit tad guror evame nahi. If there were any errors in my presentation, may the learned souls correct me. However, if there was anything nice in it, my talk, then it belongs to my guru and not to me. Srila Prabhupada ki. May you be glorified, Srila Prabhupada, throughout the three worlds. Thank you, Prabhu. Well, we have lots more nectar on flowers. I think even we can continue with some Kadamba flowers, but we have more nectar from our Goswamis and various poets and our beloved Srila Prabhupada about flowers. So give me some time, 1 week, and we'll be back again. Thank you so much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Shri Shri Gaura Nitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radha Shama Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari Shrimati Radharani ki, Shri Mayapur Dham ki, Shri Shri Gaura Nitai ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtanya ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Jai Jai Sri Sri Radhe Shyam. Hare Krishna, glories to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome back once again to our ongoing series on the glories of our most beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pastacha Deshatarine. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, we are continuing with our mini-series on stimulation for ecstatic love, and this will be part 11. We have been discussing different items and articles that are part of Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes, which invoke love for Radha and Krishna. Last week we discussed in some detail the role of flowers, and today we'll continue with that same theme. Flowers have always played an integral role in Vedic culture. For example, there's the ceremony of Pushpanjali. Pushpanjali is made up of two words, Pushpa meaning flowers, and Anjali, which means an offering made with folded hands or hands cupped like this to show respect to a distinguished personality, like the Supreme Lord or the spiritual master or a saintly person. Actually, I was reading that in ancient times, wealthy persons would offer not flowers, but palmfuls of jewels in such ceremonies. It was called Patanjali. But in this age, that's obviously not possible, so we offer nice flowers. And that's appropriate. We mentioned last week that Srila Prabhupada once said that flowers are the only opulence left in Kali Yuga. And the Vedas say that first and foremost amongst deserving personalities to offer such worship and gratitude to is the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. Somebody might ask, why should we be so grateful to the Supreme Lord? Our answer, amongst many, is because He's providing us with the basic necessities of life. Like the earth we walk on, the air we breathe, the water we drink. So often we take these things for granted. But our Shastras say that such things are not accidents of material nature. Rather, they're gifts from the Lord, given to us so that we can perfectly execute the real mission of life, which, as we know, is self-realization, culminating in love for the divine couple. And we can express our gratitude for such amazing gifts by offering something so simple as a flower. But more important, or maybe it's better to say what's most important, is the attitude in which we offer that flower. In other words, it's the devotion, the love, the bhakti in which we offer the flower. And Krishna himself mentions this in Bhagavad Gita. Famous verse, 9:26. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhakta prayachati. If one offers to me with devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or even water, I will accept them. It's incredible, actually, that although He provides so much, we need only offer back a simple flower or, in some cases, a handful of water. Just like here in India, when people worship the sacred Ganges River, they simply offer a palmful of water back to the Ganges. Mother Ganges accepts. Or those who worship Surya Bhagavan, the sun, they simply offer him a candle, and he accepts, if there's devotion there. And again, it's more the consciousness in which we offer the item than the item itself. In other words, a big offering made without devotion doesn't match a small offering made with love. And I was thinking there's a very nice example in the Ramayana. We've all heard how Lord Ramachandra was trying to build a bridge from India over to Lanka in order to rescue his dear wife, the goddess of fortune, Sita Devi, who had been kidnapped by the evil Asura, Ravana. Now Lord Ram had an army of powerful monkeys and bears who were actually throwing huge boulders into the ocean to make the bridge. Now seeing this, a small squirrel, who was also a devotee of Ram, decided to help by kicking in small little particles of sand into the ocean, but with great love and devotion. However, when Ram's devotee, Hanuman, noticed what she was doing, he approached her and he asked, "Little squirrel, why are you putting such tiny pieces of sand into the water when we powerful monkeys and bears are throwing big boulders into the sea to construct the bridge? Your sand is so insignificant." But just at that moment, Lord Ram appeared, and he told his very dear devotee Hanuman that he actually appreciated the squirrel's service as much as he did all the monkeys and bears' service, because she was doing it with bhakti, with devotion. That's what counts. So then it's really amazing. Lord Ram patted that little squirrel's back like this, with his fingers, his 3 fingers. He patted her on the back like this, praising her effort. And it said, that's why we see here in India, all the squirrels, they have 3 white lines going over their back, like this. It's the blessing of Lord Ram on the little squirrel, who had shown her love for Ram by her tiny efforts, imbued with prema. It's all about love. So similarly, in our lives, we may perform services to the Lord, some big and some small, like offering flowers to the Lord, but we must do it with as much devotion as we can muster. Then it's accepted. Now, I was reading that the many varieties of flowers that grow in Vrindavan appear on all sorts of bushes and trees. Last week we spoke extensively about the Kadamba tree, which has an especially fragrant flower that Radha and Krishna enjoy very much. Now when we speak about these Kalpavriksha trees, these flowering trees, we understand that actually they're all eternally liberated souls who have a very unique rasa with Krishna. And what is that? A rasa of neutrality. But don't think for a minute that such a rasa is less than the rasas of servitorship, friendship, parentalhood, or conjugal love. No. The tree's rasa with Krishna is just as pleasing to him as any other rasa. In Govinda Lilamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj says that just as devotees in Dasya, Vatsalya, Sakya, and Madhurya Ras experience the 8 symptoms of ecstatic love for Krishna, so do those in the mood of neutrality, such as trees. And what is the stimulus for the ecstatic symptoms these trees sometimes exhibit? We could say, what is the cause? It's very nice. The Acharyas say, number 1, it's just the simple fact that these trees are growing in the Chintamani soil of Sri Vrindavan Dham, in the Braj Renu. Their ecstasy comes from just the fact that they're connected to the soil, to the Chintamani ground, the dust of Braj. And we're so fortunate that when we come to Vrindavan, we walk in that same dust. That's why generally you see people walk barefoot in Vrindavan. Now that fact alone, that they're growing in the Chintamani Dham, causes ecstatic feelings to manifest within these trees' hearts. What's more, such trees, actually, their good fortune is that they get to witness the very confidential, loving pastimes of Krishna with Radha and the gopis, because these pastimes are often performed more or less hidden from everyone else in the kunjas or the groves of Vrindavan. A kunja means where there's bushes and trees. So there they are as trees, but they're witnessing these very sweet pastimes of Radha and Krishna, which not all devotees get to see. Now another proof that such trees know well of the confidential pastimes of Radha and Krishna is that in the Gaur Gunadesha Dipika by Srila Kavi Karnapur, he writes that Madhavinda Puri, who introduced the concept of Madhurya Ras a little before the appearance of Lord Chaitanya, he is a Kalpavriksha tree, a desire tree in the spiritual world. Now, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur confirms the same. He confirms the same thing in his Gora Gana Swarup Tattva Chandrika. I found this verse. Gora Gana Swarup Tattva Chandrika. Verse 26. He writes, Pura Vrindavane Yabisid Ayam Kalpatarur Harer. Quote, Madhavinda Puri was previously Lord Hari's desire tree in Vrindavan. There you go. Madhavinda Puri was previously Lord Hari's desire tree in Vrindavan. Now, a side note here, I know that, well, I read, that desire tree, Madhavinda Puri, is situated in Nidhivan, in Braj. And any Brajabasi will tell you that's a very special place, Nidhivan. Krishna has pastimes and Ras Leela, etc. So, desire trees. Now, Govinda Lilamrita describes that Krishna feels very endeared to these flowering trees. And sometimes he even speaks to them. He says, "Oh, my dear friends, the trees, oh, wise ones, is everything all right with you today? Did last night's gentle rain quench your thirst and nourish your flowers and fruits?" And just so that we can understand how exalted these tree personalities are, the Acharyas say that in the dark of night, the trees, they often faint because they're unable to see Krishna anywhere. Wow. But later on, when they hear the soothing sound of Krishna's voice or the celestial music that flows from his flute, they come back to life and instantly blossom into so many flowers and leaves. Then they shake their leaves in ecstasy, or they shed honey tears and honor Krishna with the smile of their blossoms, and they're swaying in happy breezes. And they're swaying in happy breezes. Again, this is the only poetry we want to hear, this type of poetry. Hare Krishna. And it's described, these trees are so fortunate. Why? What's their great fortune? Or a special fortune they get? They get to touch Krishna. These devotees get to touch Krishna. How so? Because as he passes by them in the Vrindavan forest, they bend down and touch his feet with the tips of their branches and their blossoming flowers. Prabhupada actually describes this in Krishna book. He describes how when Krishna and Balaram are walking through the forest, the trees bow down to offer obeisances and offer their fruits and their flowers to Krishna and Balaram. And they get to touch the Supreme Lord. It's described that by touching the lotus feet of Krishna, they experienced a heightened, a heightened state of ecstasy, which causes a sap from within their trunks to drip from their pores, which muddies the ground everywhere. However, after Krishna passes by and leaves them behind, they lament the fact that they're not able to follow him because they're trees and they're rooted to the ground. One devotee puts it very poetically. He writes, "Thus the trees decry their lamentable state with inspired sentiments born of separation." Thus the trees decry their lamentable state with inspired sentiments born of separation. And in a mood of extreme humility, which is always demonstrated by advanced devotees of the Lord, the trees discuss amongst themselves as follows. "Oh, we're simply rooted in the mode of ignorance. We must have previously committed some offenses because we can't follow Krishna." Of course, they're all liberated souls, or rather nityasiddhas, eternally liberated souls. So there's no question of any offense or sin on their part, but this is their humility. However, everything has a good ending in Krishna consciousness. It's described that before Krishna gets too far away, One of their great friends comes to their rescue. And who's that great friend? Who's the friend of the trees? It's the wind. The wind. For the wind blows very strongly at that time and helps them to bow down and stretch out a great distance and again touch Krishna before he gets too far away. So in order to remove any doubts that someone may have about these trees, I found a beautiful verse in Braja Riti Chintamani by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. It's 223, where he nicely glorifies these trees. He writes, "These splendid trees of Brajabhumi are perfectly spiritual in nature. They're full of all potencies, and they are just like incarnations of the Lord." Wow. Amazing feature, another amazing feature of these flowering trees is that they yield ripe, juicy fruits. It's also said the wives of these trees appear as vines wrapped around the trees and moisten the ground with their joyful tears of honey, and they perfume the air with pollen as they embrace their husbands, the trees. That these vines are the wives of the trees is actually confirmed by Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati in his Vrindavan Mahimamrita. I found this in Sataka 2, text 11. He writes, "With their soft flower petal hands, Shri Radha and Krishna carefully watered the trees and vines from the time of their first sprouting. They nourished them and made them grow, and at the proper time married each vine, or every vine, to an appropriate tree. And when they saw new flowers beginning to blossom, they became delighted and spoke many playful, joking words. Let us bow down and offer obeisances to these trees and their wives, the vines, in the Vrindavan forest." Hare Krishna. Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati also describes other kinds of flowering trees in Vrindavan, like really special. He said these other flowering trees, their trunks are made of gold. This is all in Vrindavan Mahimamrita. Actually, he writes a lot about trees. He writes their branches are made of blue opals. Their twigs are made of sapphires, and their leaves are made of emeralds and rubies, and their flowers are all crystals. And when these trees produce fruits, their fruits are all valuable gems. All glories to the flowering trees of Braj. Now the ultimate proof that these flowering trees are super, super special in their rasa of neutrality is Krishna's own praise of them. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10, 22:31, we hear how Krishna once famously said to his cowherd friends, "O Stoka Krishna and Amsa, O Sridham, Subal, Arjun, O Vishal, Vishab, Devaprastha, and Rutapa, just see these greatly fortunate trees whose lives are completely dedicated to the benefit of others. Even while tolerating the wind, rain, heat, and snow, they protect us from these elements." He's specifically talking about Vrindavan trees, but trees on this earth also, they render nice service to mankind. And then in Srimad Bhagavatam 10, 22:33, Krishna says, just see how they are maintaining every living entity. Their birth is successful. The behavior is just like that of great personalities. For anyone who asks anything from a tree never goes away disappointed. And that's especially true with Kalpavriksha trees. Because anything that you need in the Seva, the service of Krishna, a Kalpavriksha tree will provide. Not just fruits or flowers, but if you need utensils for cooking, the Kalpavriksha tree can give. If you need a gift for Radha and Krishna, it will give. If you need vegetables, it will give. This is Kalpaviksha. They're to serve, like all devotees. Now, in his song, Vibhavari Shesha, from his work Kalyana Kalpaturu, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he glorifies the Kadamba tree and its flowers in verse 6. Many devotees know that song. In verse 6, Yashoda Nandana Kamsa Nishudana Nikunja Rasa Vilasi Kadamba Kanana Rasa Parayana Vrinda Vipina Nibhashi. Now Srila Prabhupada has given a very beautiful translation and commentary of that particular verse from that song. Simultaneously he translates it and he gives a commentary. It's very nice. He writes, Yashoda Nandana Kamsa Nishudana. He is very much celebrated as the son of Mother Yashoda. He's the killer of Kamsa and Nikunja Rasa Vilasi. He used to dance rasa dance in the Nikunja. Vamsi Vata Nikunja Kadamba Kanana Rasa Parayana. There are many Kadamba trees. Kadamba is a kind of flower that is especially grown in Vrindavan. Very fragrant and beautiful. Prabhupada says, or writes, solid flower, round. So Kadamba Kanana, he used to enjoy the rasa dance underneath the tree of this Kadamba. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada. Now, for some leelas, or a leela, there's a very nice pastime by one of my favorite poets, Lalita Kishore, whom we often quote. As we've mentioned before, he was a contemporary poet of Srila Narottam Das Thakur. He was from the village of Uchkaun, near Varshana, Lalita's village, and he was initiated in the line of Sri Gadadhar Pandit of Panchatattva. One time we mentioned his beautiful poetry, still sung today in both Radharaman Temple in Braj and Radha Govindaji's temple in Jaipur. Now, one of his poems, it's entitled in Braj Bhasa, Yug Yug Raj Karo. Yug Yug Raj Karo. The translation is, may you rule age after age. He writes about a beautiful pastime where how can I put it? A flowering Kadamba tree takes center stage. Da-da-da. A flowering Kadamba tree takes center stage. He writes, once in a playful mood, Krishna and his cowherd friends, they played a game where Krishna became the king of Braja, and he assigned Madhu Mangal to become his chief minister. And Sridham, he pretended to be the royal advisor, and the cowherd boy Vishal, he became the holder of the whisk-tail fan and the royal umbrella, in like Krishna's government. In their game, Madhu Mangal brought Shtoka Krishna, one of the cowherd boys, in front of Krishna and said, "My dear Lord, this farmer stole the cows of Subal and painted them like his own cows." So Krishna, he's like the king now, he said, "Then arrest him and give all the cows back to Subal." Now, by Purnamasi's arrangement, just at that moment, Shri Radhika and a large procession of her gopis, I mean, you could say thousands, came by. And they were accompanied by many musical instruments. And the gopis, all these gopis, were singing very loudly, "Radharani ki jai ho, Radharani ki jai ho, Radharani ki jai ho." So seeing this, Madhu Mangal became very upset. And he ran up to them and he said, "Stop this nonsense, please, girls. Our king is attending his royal court duties now. Do not disturb him." So hearing this threat, Alita Saki, she came forward and she pushed Madhu back. She's very fiery. She pushed him back and she said, "No king rules this land. Shri Radha is the queen of Braja, and her authority is absolute. Therefore, you cannot stop us from praising her. You cannot stop us from praising her." Now, noticing this disturbance, Krishna came forward and he said, "What is happening, my dear minister, Madhu Mangal?" So Madhu said, "Krishna, these ignorant cowherd girls are saying that you are not the king of this land, and that their friend, Shri Radha, this girl, is the only ruling authority as queen." Started laughing. So Krishna said, very seriously, "Then call for my advisor, Sridham. He will give us the final verdict on this." So Madhu Mangal called for Sridham, who came forward and declared that the one who wins the game of Bhag Bhakri will be the ruling authority of Braj. So Bhag Bhakri, I looked it up actually, it's an ancient game, still played today, all over India actually. It's played on a wooden board. And in the game, one player controls 4 tigers, and the other player controls 20 goats. They have little figurines like that. And in the game, the tigers, they hunt the goats, and the goats attempt to block the tigers' movements. This game ends only when the tigers have captured all the goats, or if the goats are successful at entrapping all the tigers. One side wins, or one side loses. So as they started preparing the game, Radha and Krishna and all the gopis and cowherd boys, they sat under the shadow of a beautifully flowering kadamba tree, where many flowers had actually fallen, and the girls, they made a very comfortable asana for the divine couple. Our poet describes the asana as soft as a moving rain cloud. Just in your mind's eye, there's this cushion of kadamba flowers, and it's as soft as a moving rain cloud. So then Sridham, he placed the playboard on a wooden table, and at that point Madhu Mangal said, "Oh, you poor gopis, don't you see there's only one tiger, which is Krishna, and all the goats are you, poor girls, who are fighting uselessly to trap our undefeated King Krishna." So then Lalita became fiery again. She retorted, "Don't you know, Madhu, that in this area of Braj Mandala, tigers hide in caves in fear of foxes like me." Tigers hide in caves in fear of foxes like me. So Madhu kind of backed off. So at that point, the game began in earnest, as Lalita, representing the side of Sri Radhika and the gopis, used all kinds of tricks to defeat Krishna, who was playing on the other side. However, Sridham, who was very expert at the game, he came in and he quickly defeated all of Lalita's tricks, with his own tricks. So like this, to make a long story short, for some time, the game went back and forth, but eventually it became obvious that the cowherd boys were winning. The boys were winning. And finally, the poet says, when Sri Radha's hands started hurting from moving the goat figurines around so much, she conceded defeat. Now, of course, we know that with her pure love, she controls Krishna. And in that sense, she's undefeatable. However, the nature of loving relationships is that lovers often yield to the desires and wishes of their beloveds. So turning to Krishna, it's so sweet, she said, "O Lord of my heart, I am your lifelong servant. Please accept me as your dasi. You are the king, ruler of our hearts, and your kingdom is our senses, in which you play according to your desire." Then, Sri Radha, with her own hands, planted a small Kadamba tree seedling. And she said, Krishna, this forest becomes glorious with your presence. As it is the duty of a servant to hold an umbrella over the master or king's head, may this blooming, blossoming Kadamba tree represent me and cover you like the umbrella of my life and soul. And concluding, she said, Yug Yug Raja Karo, Yug Yug Raja Karo, may you rule age after age, or yuga after yuga, this forest of Vrindavan. Then she poured water from the Jamuna River with a golden pot over that little seedling, and suddenly, magically, mystically, that plant became a large, blossoming Kadamba tree. Just full. So at that point, the Gopas and the Gopis, they placed the divine couple under that tree, and from the Kadamba flowers that were like everywhere, falling from the tree, they made them royal crowns, the divine couple. Now at that point, the Gopis, all the Gopis, there's thousands, they called out to the divine couple, Yug Yug Raja Karo, may you rule age after age. Now one Acharya, he poses the question why the cowherd girls were calling out Yug Yug Raja Karo, that Radha and Krishna may rule together, Sri Vrindavan Dham. He poses the question, why are they doing that when in fact, as we concluded, Krishna was the winner? Why are they addressing both Radha and Krishna now? May you both rule, when actually Krishna was the winner. They're including Radharani there. So he answers the question by saying, the Gopis never like to accept that Sri Radha is ever defeated by Krishna. Therefore, in calling out Yug Yug Raja Karo, they meant, may you both rule age after age. They included Radharani. Hare Krishna. So, let us conclude today with the poet Surdas, who writes in his poem, Man Ke Pad, some very beautiful glorification of Radha and Krishna and Kadamba trees and Kadamba flowers. He writes, whenever Krishna feels separation from Sri Radha, he wears a Kadamba flower garland around his neck, close to his heart. The tenderness, the color, the fragrance and the touch of the Kadamba flowers feel exactly like Sri Radha to him. When Sri Radha becomes manavati, it means prideful in anger, Krishna sits under a Kadamba tree and cries. His tears go into the roots of the tree, and it appears as if Krishna is watering the Kadamba tree with his tears. Then he sends Kadamba flowers with the gopi to Sri Radha. When these flowers touch the lotus feet of Sri Radha, the gopi says, "O dear Sri Radha, please feel the tears of Mohan. Please feel the tears of Mohan, which are presented in the wetness of these golden flowers. O Pyari," Pyari means dear, "O Pyari, why have you so much man, so much anger? Please abandon it and now run to Mohan." Surdas says, "O friend, look now, Kadamba like Radha is running towards Tamal like Krishna." O friend, look now, Kadamba like Radha is running towards Tamal like Krishna. Shri Brajabhumi, Shri Vrindavan Dham ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much. We'll do our best to come up with more nectarian pastimes of Radha and Krishna and flowers of Vrindavan as a stimulus for awakening right now deep within our heart that love for the divine couple, but it's there. And by constantly Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting about Krishna, Krishna Shmaranam will come, and constant remembrance of Krishna, because he's all attractive, will awaken that love within our heart to the upteenth degree. And one day we can join Srila Prabhupada in the spiritual world. Thank you. We'll be back in 1 week. Shri Shri Gauranitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radharama Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari, Srimati Radharani ki, Mayapur Dham ki, Shri Shri Gauranitai ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtan Yagya ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Nitai Govinandi. Jai Jai Sri Sri Radhe, Sharm Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham. Hare Krishna.
আমি যমুনা পুলিনে কদম্ব কাননে কি হেরিনু সখিয়া আমি যমুনা পুলিনে কদম্ব কাননে কি হেরিনু সখিয়া আমার সমবংশী শ্রী হরি অষ্ট সখী হরিজন আমি যমুনা পুলিনে কদম্ব কাননে কি হেরিনু সখিয়া আমার শ্যামবংশী হারি মণিমঞ্চপুরী করিলিল রসরাজ তারা সুগীত নর্থনে সব সখী গণে চুষিছে যুগল দনে তারা সুগীত নর্তনে সব সখী গানে চুষিছে যুগল দনে তখন কৃষ্ণ লীলাহি প্রকৃতি সুন্দরী বিস্তারিছে স্বভাবনে আমি যমুনা পুলিনে কদম্ব কাননে কি হেরিনু সখিয়া তারা অষ্ট দল পরি শ্রী রাধা শ্রী হরি অষ্ট সখী হরিজন শ্যামবংশীধারী মণিমঞ্চপুরী করিলিল রসরাজ আমি যমুনা পুলিনে কদম্ব কাননে কি হেরিনু সখিয়া আমি ঘরে না যাইব বনে প্রবেশিব অলীলা রসের তরে ব্রজ ব্রজ রাজ বিনোদে মিনতি করি আমি চাঁদি কুলালা সখী রামের সখী সখী আমার ঘরে না যাইব মনে প্রবেশিব বলিল রসের তোরে আমি যমুন তুলিনে কাদম্ব কাননে কি হেরিনু সখিয়া আমি যমুন পুলিনে কদম্ব কাননে কি হেরিনু সখিয়া হরে কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম 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 হরে হরে
Translation of Ami Jamina Pulina. O Sakhi, my dear girlfriend, what have I seen today? In a Kadamba grove on the banks of the Yamuna, a beautiful blackish boy holding a long flute Vamsi is seated upon a throne of jewels, performing his pastimes as the king of all transcendental mellows. Situated upon the 8 petals of the jeweled altar is Sri Radha and Sri Hari, surrounded by their attendants, the 8 sheep gopis. There, Krishna performs his enormous pastimes, which are just like a waterfall of nectar. By singing sweet songs and by dancing nicely, all the gopis satisfy their treasured divine couple. Thus, I am beholding Krishna's pastime with his beautiful female consorts expanding throughout the splendorous forest. For the sake of the mellows of such pastimes, I will not go to my home, but I will instead enter into the forest, renouncing all shyness due to fear of family members. Just worship the Lord of Raja. This is the humble submission of Bhakti Vinoda. Hare Krishna.
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Vedam Karmatamarvinda Jayataksha Bharavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundaranga Kandarmakovidamanita Vishesha Shubham Govinda Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Anganiyasya Sakale Diya Vritimante Pashyanti Vanti Karyanti Sriram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govinda Adipurusha Namah Bhajami
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Dhira Swami Krishna Krishna Namaste Saraswate Gauravarini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Hare Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama
Rama Rama Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Shri Radha Shankar Shakti Jai, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Guru Granth Ki Jai.
Vatsala Sri Gaura Hari Bhaja Bhakta Vatsala Sri Gaura Hari Sri Gaura Hari Sahi Goshta Bihari Nanda Jasomati Chita Hari Dhira Damodara Ishaye Kana Bova Mandire Basi Karaha Bojana Nanderani Deshi Bashi Giri Baradari Baladeva Saha Soka Boise Sari Sari Shukta Shakhari Baji Lalita Kushmanda Dalidana Dugda Tumi Dadi Mocha Kanda Mudabora Mash Boda Rotika Britana Daskuli Pistaka Kir Kuli Payasana Kapura Amrita Keli Ramba Kirashara Amrita Rasalama Dvadasha Pakora Luci Sinisar Puri Ladura Sabali Bhojana Korena Krishna Hoye Kutuhali Radhikara Pakayana Bibida Byanjana Paramayanande Krishna Korena Bhojana Chale Bale Ladu Khai Sri Madhu Mangala Bagala Bajaya Deya Hari Bolo Radhikari Gani Hari Nayane Rakone Tripta Hoye Kai Krishna Jasoda Bhavani Bhojanante Priya Krishna Subhasita Bari Sabe Mukha Prakaloy Kore Sari Sari Asta Mukha Prakaliya Jata Sakadane Anande Vishrama Kore Baladeva Sane Jambula Rasalane Kambula Masala Tahake Krishna Chandra Suke Nidradela Vishalaka Shiki Pucha Chamara Dulaya Apurva Saya Krishna Suke Niraya Yasomati Anga Priye Danishtaya Nito Sri Krishna Prasad Radha Gunje Hoye Prito Lalithari Saki Gana Avashe हर्ष पाया मन मन सुखे राधा कृष्ण गुण गाया हरि लीला एकमात्र जहाँ प्रमोदा भारती गाय ठाकुर भक्ति विनोदा कथा वत्सल श्री गौर हरि कथा वत्सल श्री गौर हरि श्री गौर हरि सहि गोष्ठ बिहारी श्री गौर हरि सहि गोष्ठ बिहारी